Drivers, are you sure you're insured? There's a lot of scam happening here in the GTA, especially with newly licensed drivers and with drivers under 2 years of experience. Let me explain. Here in the Greater Toronto area, all over Canada, not just here in the GTA, Canada and the US, there's scams happening with insurance and insurance fraud. So 2 stories I'm gonna give you. These are actual stories from drivers that I heard of that called in. It all revolves around the insurance fraud for newly licensed drivers and also with drivers with less than 2 years of experience. You're gonna enjoy these stories because these things actually happen, and you might think that, hey, maybe this is happening to me. So I just wanna warn the public out there that this is happening, and as our industry tumbles more and more, there's more fraudulent things that are happening, especially with the smaller trucking companies and sometimes even the larger trucking companies. So story number 1, we have a newly licensed driver that applies for a job. He did the road test, passed the road test. The trucking company hired the driver. Now again, it's a newly licensed driver. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea. Anyways, they put the driver by himself. In his first 3 months of work, he gets into an accident driving from Toronto to Montreal. All right, there is a bodily injury claim in the accident. So somebody in a light vehicle got injured, files a claim. All of a sudden, paperwork go back and forth. The insurance company ends up denying the claim. Now, why did they end up denying the claim? Because the truck driver was not insured on the policy. How was he not insured on the policy? Because the trucking company, even though they had a small fleet, they had a clause saying that they can only hire drivers with a minimum of 2 years of experience. Now, a lot of this is happening in our industry where trucking companies will make exceptions to hire newly licensed drivers because they prefer to have anybody instead of nobody. Driver finds out that he was not insured, company ends up shutting down, they end up taking all their assets, taking their trucks and trailers, putting into a new company, getting insured under their cousin, their mother, great grandma, whoever it is, getting the insurance, and then they just flip the switch basically. So in our industry, this is referred to as a chameleon carrier. So the bodily injury claim, now the insurance company doesn't want to pay it. We have a driver that's left without a job, and we also have a driver that's left without being paid his wages, okay? Now, the driver had nothing to do with this. He comes in for an interview, he comes in for a job placement, they hire him, and then all of a sudden he finds out only after this that he's not insured. Now, can you imagine if there was a rollover and the driver lost his legs, or if there was a rollover and the driver actually injured himself? He would not be insured. So for you guys out there, newly licensed drivers, this is happening all over our industry, especially here in the Greater Toronto area. You need to be made aware of this. So that is in story number 1. Now, story number 2 is even more common in our industry, and I'm hearing more and more about this. So, driver worked for a small company, newly licensed driver, 3 months experience, 6 months experience. He comes in, again, wants a job, does a road test, everything's okay. In some cases, they don't even do a road test. But driver gets hired into a smaller company, 15, 20 power units. He works there for 6 months, and then as he's closer to the 2-year mark, all of a sudden now he is applying to other places that have a minimum requirement for 2 years. Now he gets a much better job somewhere else. Now that new job wants a reference letter. The previous company says yes, he has experience, but then they say no, we don't want the reference letter from the trucking company. We want the reference letter from the insurance company confirming that you've been insured. Now, driver sees the pink slip in his truck, calls his insurance company. Insurance company says, I don't know what you're talking about. You're not registered to work for this company. So his experience basically is unverified. And now again, he has to start from the beginning because he has no verifiable experience because the company that he worked for didn't register him in their insurance. So these are real stories out there of what's happening in our community, in our industry here in the Greater Toronto area. So what would I be looking out for as a driver, all right? So the first thing you need to do is, number 1, you should not be lying about your work experience. Number 2, if a company is willing to hire you for 1 year, with 1 year experience or with no experience, you need to make sure that you are insured. How do you know that you're insured? You need something with the insurance and their letterhead saying that you, the driver, with this and this driver's license, are insured under this and this policy, okay? Because the last thing that you want
is to get pulled over, or to get into an accident, or even an at-fault accident, or even when you're not at fault, okay, you are still going to be in the same situation like these two drivers, where the insurance company will deny your claim for injuries. And I can assure you that it's not worth it. So if you know companies that are doing it, leave the comments down below. If you know other companies that have shut down because of this, leave the comments down below. We need to create awareness. With these platforms that we have tools, we have the power to create awareness for other people. I can't wait to read some of your comments. I'm Ronen, and I'll catch you in my next video.